Dear Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon from the beautiful Magic Bolifushi. Thank you from the heart for having us together today at the Ocean Reserve Bolifushi in the Maldives. It gives me a great pleasure to open this roundtable. Thank you.
While the current global situation presents us all from being together here today, we believe it is necessary to continue holding discussions on critical topics for the future of the Maldives and for mankind, such as the environment, climate change, education, and sustainable development. As we figure out how our future would look like, it is important that we do not lose a sense of perspective. I am referring to the all-important 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, which, if achieved, will provide a prosperous life for everybody and ensure the health of our planet. No country can achieve them alone. A combined effort and international solidarity and teamwork is key. We need fresh and innovative ideas as we adapt to new circumstances, and I am certain today's roundtable will contribute to this. Your inputs, ideas, and expertise will help us build a better world, a world we would want to leave behind to our children and our grandchildren. We are all ecstatic to welcome you, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, coming from all walks of life and from all corners of the world, from South Africa to Sweden, from Mauritius to the Maldives, from Belgium to Bolifushi. Welcome.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Sasha. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, before I start, allow me to extend our sincere congratulations on the election of the Foreign Minister of the Maldives, His Excellency Abdullah Shahid, as the next President of the United Nations General Assembly. We are sure his presidency will elevate the profile of the Maldives in the international community and provide a strong voice in calling attention to the most pressing issues relevant to Maldives and other small island developing states, such as climate change and the strengthening of multilateralism. That being said, we believe that the timing of this webinar is so critical. Countries across the world are busy devising plans for inclusive, sustainable recovery, and later this year we will have the COP26 Climate Summit in Glasgow. The SDGs, therefore, are more relevant than ever. The key question that we hope to discuss today is how do we ensure that all stakeholders, many of whom today present at this event, government, the private sector, business, civil society, entrepreneurs, youth, academia, can join forces, harmonize efforts to identify challenges, set priorities, align actions, form coherent policy responses, and mobilize financial resources for sustainable development. We will first hear from three ministers whom we at the outset thank very much for making time from their busy schedules to be here with us today. First in the program, we have Her Excellency Dr. Aishath Ali, Minister of Education of the Maldives. We know that education is not just a sustainable development goal on itself, but education directly contributes to other goals addressing poverty reduction, reduced inequalities, economic growth, and labor market opportunities, as well as the promotion of democratic institutions. So what are the priorities, plans, and targets of your ministry? Minister Aishath Ali, the floor is yours.
We can hear you.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. In 2015, the adoption of 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development by the world leaders at the 70th session of the UN General Assembly created a platform for building on our DG goals and tackle new challenges. By 2020, the Maldives had already achieved 5 out of the 8 Millennium Developmental Goals, making it South Asia's only MDG plus country. This was made possible by the high value our government places on investing in education and now offers free education for all children in the Maldives between the ages of 4 to 18. Over the past few years, we have shown progress and remarkable improvements in our SDG education indicators. Sustainable Development Goal 4 is the all-important education goal. It aims to ensure lifelong learning opportunities for all. The first target under this goal is to ensure that all girls and boys complete free, equitable, and quality primary and secondary education, leading to relevant and effective learning environments. In the Maldives, universalization of primary education was achieved in 2002, nearly 2 decades ago, with no significant gender disparity. The completion rate for primary is near 100%. The transition rate from primary to secondary is almost universal. In 2020, 98.4% students completed their lower secondary. They include the quality of schooling at primary and secondary levels. Although the enrollment at the higher secondary level has increased over time, the net enrollment rate is still low, and the completion rate of higher secondary remains low at 36.1, below the regional benchmark, which is 48.8%. And there are concerns about the quality of school education at the higher levels. Achieving the indicators of access to equitable and quality education has been made a national priority and was given a legal imperative with the ratification of the first Education Act in November 2020. The Act will become effective in August 2021. It mandates free, equitable, and quality education to all the students from ages 4 to 16. As target 2 of SDG 4, the provision of at least 1 year of free and compulsory quality primary education is encouraged to be delivered by well-trained educators. In the Maldives, 2 years of early childhood education have been made compulsory and available for free in all inhabited islands across the country. As a result, the net enrollment of early childhood education has met remarkable in 2019. SDG 4 Target 3 calls to ensure equal access for all women and men to affordable and quality technical, vocational, and tertiary education, including university education. The Education Act mandates introduction of technical vocational education in mainstream curriculum within the general education system. Hence, a technical vocational strategy is being developed to strengthen the mechanism and increase participation. In addition, Maldives Polytechnic conducts free technical vocational programs. There has also been a dramatic increase in the participation rate in higher education. The increase in enrollment may be attributed to the free bachelor degree studies for eligible students introduced by the government. At the same time, the student loan scheme for higher studies have been expanded. SDG Target 4 aims to substantially increase the number of youth and adults who have relevant skills, including technical and vocational skills, for employment, decent jobs, and entrepreneurship. The most recent household income and expenditure survey shows that among youth, 51% of both men and women have used computers and 70% have used internet. Among adults, 46% of men and women have used computers and 33% have used internet. It is believed that there will be an increase in these values at present with COVID-19 provision of data and devices to facilitate online teaching and the heavy reliance on work from home. In addition, an ICT master plan has been developed and costed by the Ministry of Education, targeting to achieve 100% ICT literacy among students. It is in this area that the Maldives need to make steadfast strides. Too many of our students are being taught subjects in what may be called business stream, which in some ways de-emphasizes the role of science in society. This focus at the same time alienates them from valuing trades and vocations where manual work is required. A mindset of cultural change is required to esteem the dignity of manual labor. SDG Target 5 is about the elimination of indigenous people and children in vulnerable situations. Gender parity has been achieved in the school education system years ago. Gender disparity often considers the enrollment. A greater focus appears to be needed to improve the achievement of boys. We believe that having a disability should not limit the student in accessing education. Extensive work is being carried out to improve the curriculum experiences by students with disabilities. Such work is underway to systemize the continuity of learning for children in vulnerable situations. SDG Target 6 calls to ensure that all youth and substantial portion of women achieve literacy and numeracy. The Maldives has achieved and sustained an adult literacy rate of over 98% since the late 1990s. To achieve Target 7, we have introduced a new curriculum in 2015 that aims to provide all-encompassing holistic student experiences. Though this is a step in the right direction, much work still needs to be done. Concepts of anti-bullying, democratic values, and gender equality needs to be woven into the fabric of everyday school experiences. More than any other, what is required is to make the curriculum relevant to the every needs of the community. In our quest to build and upgrade inclusive, safe schools, all the schools have been provided with electricity, safe drinking water, and single-sex basic sanitation facilities. Though schools have become more inclusive spaces, there are significant variations across the country in education programs, and the retention of quality teachers remain as major issues in our education system. To address this teacher shortage, the government aims to raise the social status of teachers by raising remuneration and expanding the opportunities for professional development. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for this overview. And I'm sure some of the speakers will pick up on this topic later on in this event. We now move on to His Excellency Abdulla Mausoom, Minister of Tourism. We know that tourism, of course, is one of the largest industries in the Maldives, accounting directly for around a quarter of GDP, and that the last year has been challenging for the industry. So we'd like to ask, what steps is your ministry taking to revitalize the industry once again? Your Excellency, Abdulla Mausoom, you have the floor.
Yeah, sorry, there you go. A very good afternoon indeed. It's a great pleasure for me to be part of this important discussion. The Maldives itself is considered a sustainable development destination as an example that we have achieved through careful planning in the tourism development process. As we move towards SDG, the main focus is on making sure that tourism is accessible to everybody and tourism benefits are there. So the main project now we have started is taking tourism to the one of the main strategies that we are establishing is contrary to the initial tourism development where we have had one island, one resort type of development, which is very successful. Government has decided to take tourism to the people. So tourism will be taken to all the inhabited islands. And the main idea is to make sure that tourism benefits are given to the common people. At the moment, only 20% of the beds are in hotels and guest houses. This sector, when we start really developing, we are hoping that there will be a huge engagement. Main focus will be on linking tourism to the island economies. So fishermen, farmers, the craftsmen, performing artist people, everybody in the islands will have a role to play in the tourism. They will benefit directly from tourism. While doing so, we are developing the domestic transport network that will make the living very feasible for the island-locked community. The new transport systems, domestic transport systems that are established through air networks, sea links, and also in bigger islands, improved roads will enable very good transport. The one major area that we are also focusing is on empowering women, engaging women in tourism. We aim to give ownership of tourism products to women and also have women in employment. Tourism industry has lacked over the last few years. We are very optimistic because in the recent election we held, the Maldives had dedicated seats for the women, and now Ministry of Tourism is conducting consultations and having engagements with all the local councils. And we hope that with this women presence in the local council, plus women development committees in the islands, each island having a women development committee, able to really get a meaningful engagement from women to tourism. Then, of course, Maldives tourism is very much environment friendly, because tourism, unlike other industries, we have a very good stand on this, because it is in the interest of the industry that the environment stays good. And reduce, reuse, recycle concept will really be implemented throughout the planning, development, and management of all the tourism facilities. One area that we are really focused on, of course, Minister Shauna will go into most of the tourism new products that we are now announcing carries a very high uh, marking value for renewable energy commitment. And I think that is very important as everybody tries to save on energy. I think Maldives will stand out as a very good example of that. Another area that is really we have been planning and working on is the Maldives, because hotel type of resort development. We had this kind of social problem where women and men who work in the resorts, they live away from their families. So the government focus is on ensuring work and live with the family. So most of the resorts, they will have a system of enabling Maldivians who work in these resorts to go back to their family after their duty is done. That is something that hasn't happened in real terms, even though we have discussed a bit. There are two strategies we are using for that. One is to have housing scheme in some central islands where education and health is really established, and these housing schemes will be linked to the tourism sector employees, so they will be able to have housing, and even if somebody working in an atoll moves to another atoll for work, still they will be able to bring their family and have a decent living. Another one is we also initially in our tourism planning, we required resorts to have tourism accommodation. But now we don't require them to have the accommodation for staff on the island, but rather a decent work, relaxed environment where they can work. But if they have accommodation for staff, they must meet the international criteria. We are happy to announce that most of the resorts, even though we have a minimum standard, they surpass the minimum standard we set. They realize that human resource is very important for the tourism success in the Maldives. That is one factor that other destinations cannot replicate, because Maldivian hospitality, Maldivian smile that is our strength. Of course, we have got our geographical advantage. With geographical advantage, of course, there is this environment aspect that we are all talking about. I think there is mixed debate as to what's happening with the global warming. One thing is sure: global warming really damages our coral reefs. That can be a problem. But with regard to whether global warming and result in sea level rise will let Maldives go down, I think scientists are very optimistic that Maldives will stay afloat, because that is the way our islands are formed. But damage in coral would mean many big attraction of our other economic activities we have. I wish to be engaged in other times when I get a chance to intervene. I thank you once again for this important meeting at this difficult time. Tourism better when we are present in physically, but what to do? Difficult days. This is better than not having anything. You seem very close, seeing all of you in front of the screen, but look forward to meeting you in person.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Indeed, and thank you for reminding us that the tourism ministry is not just about attracting tourists, but also to improve the livelihoods of the local population. I think that's a very important message. And last, we have Her Excellency Aminath Shauna, Minister of Environment, Climate Change and Technology. You have a very wide-ranging portfolio, including dealing with one of the existential threats to the Maldives, that is climate change. Last year, we heard President Ibrahim Solih stating that Maldives could achieve net zero emissions as early as 2030 with the necessary technical and financial support from the international community. So we very much look forward to your remarks. Your Excellency, floor is yours.
Thank you. And it's a really great pleasure to be here. Distinguished ministers, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and a very good afternoon. And it's like Dr. Mausoom and Education Minister has also said, it's really a pity that we cannot all be together. It's certainly very difficult times and one of the most challenging times of in anything that we have seen before. The organizers of Diplomatic World for inviting me, and not just that, but bringing us all together to have a discussion on something so important and something that has really magnified the importance of this during this challenge. The COVID-19 pandemic is in fact a global shock like no other, and with far-reaching consequences to every aspect of our lives. And we must also not forget that climate change is still an ever-present problem for us all. And the science is very clear and the evidence is there. The world's climate system is undergoing an exponential change, and the consequences, therefore, will also be catastrophic, not just on small island states, but I think the impacts of it is very clear in much larger countries as well. And the effects of climate change, as I said, is not just a threat to low island nations, but the vulnerabilities are very apparent in all coastal regions, and it has spread to other sectors as well, such as agriculture, fishing, even tourism as well. So really, really glad to be here. I'd like to bring the story of the Maldives as well to your attention. Over the past years, over 90% of the islands have reported flooding annually. 97% have 4% of the islands are experiencing severe erosion. This is catastrophic, as nearly 50% of all our housing structures are also within just 100 meters and from the shoreline. And it is not just our homes and infrastructure that is in jeopardy, but our economic well-being and is also severely threatened. Therefore, we really understand the importance of building resilience while also achieving sustainable development. And these are not two things that we can, we have to carry this out in parallel, and we don't have much time left, unfortunately. And this is why for us, addressing climate change is not just a matter of an environmental issue, but has also become almost a human rights perspective as well, because if you think about the Maldives and the impacts of climate change, it almost feels like the Maldives will be uninhabitable before the sea level rise might result in complete inundation of the island nation as well. We're talking about access to clean water, we're talking about access to resources, food security as well. So these are issues that really matters our existence, our survival. The president has just 2 weeks ago ratified the Climate Emergency Act, which calls for a framework to work towards achieving net zero emissions by 2030. As Dr. Mausoom highlighted as well, we are achieving net zero emissions by 2030, given the support of international community as well. We no longer want to just be victims of climate change, but we also want to be victors. And we want to say, if a country like the Maldives can do it, the entire world can do it as well. We are currently targeting, and we hope that larger countries will commit to more ambitious targets to bring down global emissions. And we reach 1.5 degrees. And the upcoming COP climate change negotiations, time for us to come together and ensure that we really we can really make a difference in terms of bringing change. I mean, if we can really fix the ozone hole, why can't we fix rising temperatures? Despite the challenges we face, the fact that the Maldives contributes only 0.003% of global greenhouse gas emissions, we are really determined to show leadership and continue to advocate for more effective and bold climate actions to address the climate emergency that we face. While the impacts of climate change are heightened, especially for vulnerable island nations such as ours, no nation is really immune from this anymore. Therefore, this is a planet-wide challenge and to achieve a more sustainable, resilient, and low emissions. To make this goal a reality, once again, I really would like to offer my sincere thanks to the diplomatic world for the opportunity to contribute at this dialogue, and I wish you all a very fruitful discussions. And again, it's really together, but I think this really highlights how important it is for us to come together and discuss this important topic, regardless of where we are. Climate change is an issue that affects regardless of where our borders are. So it's a transnational issue that we all need to work together. And I'm really glad to have had this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for this very powerful message. And I hope all the issues you have raised will be at the forefront of negotiations during the all-important COP26 Climate Summit later this year. So to conclude the introductory speeches, we have His Excellency Hassan Sobir. He's the ambassador of the Maldives to the European Union and the Benelux countries. And he has been a great source of support in the organization, not only of this event, but many of the activities of diplomatic world over the past years, for which we're very grateful. So Your Excellency Hassan Sobir, would you like to say a few remarks?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Well, greetings from Brussels to all the excellencies and ladies and gentlemen. We have very beautiful weather here. It's like the sunny, interesting interactions on this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Excellent.
much. Thank you. Well, this was a very insightful first part, and thank you very, very much to Your Excellencies, the Ministers, for sharing your knowledge and insights with us. We're now opening the floor to our international guests and panelists, and I am thrilled to start addressing my first question to Your Excellency, Professor Ameenah Gurib-Fakim, the 6th President and first female President of the Republic of Mauritius. Your Excellency Ameenah, you were the 6th President and the first female President. How do you relate to what has been said so far by the ministers? And where do you see the similarities and other differences in the pursuit of sustainable development?
Sorry, I think the line got frozen a bit. I didn't hear the question.
Yes, I will repeat. How do you relate, having been the first female president of another small island state, the Republic of Mauritius, how do you relate to what the ministers have said so far? And where do you see similarities or differences in the pursuit of sustainable development? I was asking that since you were the president of another small island state, how can you relate to what the ministers have said so far? And where do you see similarities or differences in the pursuit of sustainable development?
Thank you. Thank you for this question for Diplomatic World, and also Maldives, the government of Maldives, for hosting us and to be able to do this webinar. I think the choice of the locale is highly appropriate, because both Mauritius, as you have rightly said, we are a small island state, and the Maldives, we share a lot in common. And the previous presenters, the ministers, I think they have all laid out the challenges and also the opportunities in tackling the development deficit that we're likely to face. Issues. And one issue that has been prominently spoken about is climate change. And again, I totally share the viewpoint of the minister when she said that small island, in fact, the whole of Africa for that matter, as well as the small island states, we have hardly contributed to greenhouse gas emission, and yet we are to bear the brunt of the global warming. And the Maldives have also an existential threat of sea level rise, and many islands are set to disappear in the not so distant future. We are already seeing the rise of the waters, and erosion is becoming an issue. And the other challenges that we face is warming oceans and acidification of the oceans. And who talks about acidification of the ocean means impacting the coral reef and cyclonic belt we are. So all these are challenges which stare at us in the face. But I think we will be remiss if we don't also address the opportunities. We will be able to address at least some of the key issues that touch on the Sustainable Development Goals. And I was very pleased to see many ladies on the Maldives taking the floor, and they are in line with SDG 5 in terms of the gender issue. So education remains dissemination of information, good practices, governance issues. I think all these will be the ingredients that will be needed in order to forge ahead a sustainable development future. So we also call for increased collaboration, that we will be able to share some of these practices in both our countries.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. It seems, from what I hear and I find fascinating over and over again, is the importance of collaboration, that we cannot all act as one. We need all to be together and tackle this together. However, I also personally believe that we should take a step back and see what small changes each and everyone as individuals can do. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Thank you. I carry on with the...
Please, yes. share what you would like to share.
Sorry. Yes. No, definitely. As I said, all actions must be, all these decisions are taken globally, but actions must be taken at local level. And I think we all have, something to contribute to building the future that we want. And definitely collaboration. And I think here again, we seek North and South exchanges. We will not be able to drive this from our side because global climate change is a global issue, and it calls for a global solution and to be tackled. This is why we need to flag in the multilateral cooperation and collaboration, which is very, very important at this stage. And I'm very pleased that the Maldives will be heading the UN General Assembly, and I think they will be able to share some of our concern and also prompt more action and more collaboration at that level. But I still think that, optimism should reign supreme. There should be issues that, they always say that there is a silver lining to all clouds. And, we have to turn around and bend the arc of these challenges to our own benefit and to make it work for ourselves. Maldives and ourselves, we have the ocean surrounding us. And here we're talking about the blue economy. And I think together, between ourselves, what we do in terms of blue economic practices, we should be able to share amongst ourselves. So there's a lot to do together, but I think forum like these help to bring us all together and help us share these ideas. It's a pity that we're not together physically because much more happens in corridors and informal meetings. But I think this is a start where we will be able to actually touch base with those actors who are in place in the Maldives at the moment.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. And it is my pleasure to once again tell you all that this is actually a hybrid event. So a few of us did manage to fly to the Maldives. And we are very excited that there is a group of us that is on Ozembolifushi right now. And my next question would actually be to one of our participants who is here with me in the room right now. I'm very excited and thrilled to welcome Cornelia from Wülfing. Mamaga Akosua, please tell me if I pronounce it correctly. Mamaga Akosua, Paramount Queen of Sasa Traditional Areas, Volta Region, Ghana. Cornelia, you have been working with and in Ghana for decades, and you are committed to projects fostering education, housing, and employment. Please tell us more about your work and how it is impacting the local community.
Yeah, fortunately, it's impacting a lot. And I'm not only working in Ghana, I started South Africa, Eastern Africa, Western Africa, Eastern Africa later. Finally, I ended up for business reasons in Ghana and in 1998. And I decided very early that I should do projects there for the benefit of the people as well. You know, Europeans are earning sometimes much money in these African countries, but many of them don't give anything back. So it was in my early years, African years, which were already in the 80s, 1980s, that I decided we have to give something back. To my opinion, it should be an obligation if you do business in a country and you are benefiting from this business, that you should find a way also to give something back. It should be by force. That's my opinion. African countries and development countries should oblige the companies coming in, benefiting from their businesses there, that a certain percentage of that, apart from the taxes, must go back to the people who are living there and have a certain impact on their lives, on education and healthcare systems, because without healthcare, the education will not work out because people are getting sick, they can't go to school. Sometimes they have serious illnesses or sicknesses, even diseases in African countries. And for me, my focus always was that as a European lady, which has been fortunately adopted by the Africans, I'm very grateful for that honor, to give something back to the society and to make their lives better. So the last projects we are doing, I built many schools, kindergartens, clinics. I did programs for employment programs, like supporting them how to manage nursery programs and all this kind of stuff. Of course, HIV, malaria, and so on and so on. There are many. I did more than 100 projects, but you were asking me about the impact on the society in general. And I'm very glad after a few years when I was not really so much aware about certain needs for the country and for the society, where I did also make some mistakes. Of course, in the beginning, you need some experience. But now I'm happy that I can say we are having projects we are doing like handicraft production, fabric production. We are waving, we are we are recycling glass. We recycle garbage and produce energy in small scale projects, which is possible for any community. It's not really a huge investment. And the community doesn't have to pay this high electricity rates, which is much in African countries, can be much. So we are happy that this garbage recycling and glass recycling, we are doing like bracelets and jewelry out of recycled glass and even sell it in Europe. And the money goes directly back in the projects where people are employed. You know, I think the most important is that we have a certain employment for the people, because then they have a good life finally. Without employment, no good life.
Correct. Thank you. Yes, it's all about giving back to the community and help them become self-sustainable in a way, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Well, I have one more question, but maybe you sort of answered it. Obviously, there is never a one-size-fits-all solution, but do you think there are projects in your decades of projects that you have been participating in that in a way can be adapted to other circumstances or countries where you say, you know, this was a big success, let us bring it to the rest of the world so that other communities can become self-sustainable?
Yeah, but it's not only my project, they are existing projects which are, fortunately, I was the founder of certain projects, but now you find them everywhere in the world because people are waking up. You know, when I started like 35 years ago, nobody was on that level. They were thinking, okay, we are doing this, we are bringing money in, we are donating to the people. After 1 year, the money was gone. The school was like damaged, and the health of the people was bad again. So I realized very early I have to do something what has a certain legacy.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Cornelia. Well, it's a beautiful, the last word you said was legacy, and it ties beautifully into our next guest, Lorenzo De Medici. Lorenzo, you come from one of the oldest dynasties in the world, the De Medici family, which was on the forefront of innovation throughout the centuries in many, many different sectors, including the arts, food, banking, and you yourself also have a daughter. So I would like to know from you, how are you living the legacy of your family for a more sustainable future? And how do you, by living this, what do you implement for your daughter's generation?
I would love to thank all of you. I would love to thank Barbara futuristic, updated, modern topping, and I would love to thank Maldives. I've been to Maldives a few times, being an Italian who loves to travel. I've been to Mauritius. They are somehow an example. Maldives is an example for the world for the last 50 years as a place where years, because we all dream to go there, and we respect their way of preserving their environment. And they should somehow thinking about how to do it for the future. You can have different feedback from different international people. There will be no tourism without the saving of the natural environment. My family is a big investor in tourism in Italy from the 1400 up to today, and Tuscany is an example to the world of preserving nature, preserving agriculture, and having the whole world to come to Tuscany for tourism. There is a lot of law that was made by the Italian government that we're looking somehow very heavy on the from the perspective of an investors, but that today are paying very well. I'll give you some example. In the past, and still today, there is laws where if you decided to create a wine or factories that create agriculture, you have to have your own grain, and if you don't have, you're obliged, if you have such number of oil, to have animals like cows. So even if you want to have your own farm, you're obliged by the law to make full environment sustainability made not only of your core business, who can be the wine or the olive oil, but it's the whole ambient that needs to be friendly to the environment. And so for sure, be able to study and understanding what the environment needs from us, and adding a tree or adding an animals, that's for sure important. Now, if we talk about sustainable cities and wildlife protection, are totally two different things. So they are totally separate challenges. And I work with different developers around the world that are building modern, sustainable cities. And there is issues that people don't really talk about, and I would love the whole people around the world to talk about. You know, we spoke about renewable energy, and we speak a lot about solar, but there is really nobody has ever say what will happen in 10, 20, 50 years where all those solar plants are old. How do we will recycle? Do they will become another environmental biggest problem? So we need to plan, not only thinking about the today, that, you know, it's fancy and it's nice to say, oh, we need to be green, but we need to think carefully of what means being green, and where this green will bring to us, and how much will cost in the future for our kids. So I think that intelligent, wise people should be not only thinking about the today, we all want to be today green, but let's see how the technology, who is the real purpose of the technology today, is to save the environment. And to build the digital bank, that means no paper. No paper means saving trees, means saving electricity, means less printer, and so a digital bank can be a way for the people to don't take the car and don't make. These entrepreneurs can change and do things to make the world better. And I think we are all together on the same boat. And I think that the boat needs to be not only electric, it can be hydrogen, it can be fusion, it can be by hand, like the old way. The future is to plan it in the right way, so we can in the future be sure that what we're doing today is not affecting our future.
Thank you, very, very insightful. And actually, one of our guests who's also here with us today, Marco Alba, and we had a very interesting conversation this morning. So Marco, I would actually like to ask you a question. You are an expert, if you so want, in business development and energy. And as such an expert, what ideas can you share with us to efficiently apply sustainability projects in the Maldives?
Well, thank you very much. I think it's a very good question, and we have to. I think there are technologies that are evolving. So the good news is that innovation is stepping in. There are small step technologies and there are big step technologies, and I think we have to play with them all. So especially in the energy sector, there are technologies right now that can be used that have less nitrogen impact, they can have less particles, and we should be using them, and at the same time building up more sustainable future energy solutions that can be solar, hydrogen, or other objectives. And why not sometimes solving two problems at the same time, that is like waste to energy. So that is waste removal, which is a big problem for a lot of communities, governments, and populations, and generate electricity. So I think the good news is that there's a lot of innovation going on, and that we should have a focus on aligning the interests of the populations, of the policymakers, investors, businessmen, and to try to find the correct mix in order to be more sustainable on the long run. by applying small steps and working on the big steps?
Well, small step and big steps. I'm turning to another participant in the room next to me, Jean-Francois Desjacques. Jean-Francois, you are an advisor to ultra high net worth individuals, and you are a strategist and expert in luxury hospitality. Now that you have listened to all these incredible ideas, thoughts, targets from the ministers, from the speakers, how do you define long-term, medium, short-term tactics? Is there such a thing?
Yeah, I think so. Hello to everyone, and thanks for hosting us in such good condition, you know. It's very good for the thinking. Yeah, okay, so yeah, what I hear is there are a lot of potential things about innovation, but one thing I would like to add, innovation in one thing, but consciousness is another thing. And I am very confident that we are, maybe our generation has maybe destroyed the world, but we have a new generation that in its way of life, in its behavior, is more protective for the environment. We see, for example, less and less people around the world who are using cars, or they do pool cars or stuff like this. So we have maybe a chance that it will help for the planet. Coming back to the Maldives, we had several talks, and Maldives is, for me, I have traveled 70 countries, and the image of Maldives, what you have in Maldives is something like you have a kind of jewel, you know, this country is a jewel. I said the country, the territory is a jewel. For the image of the world, you know, you are a jewel, so you should preserve the jewel. There are ways to do it. There are risks of flooding, but there are maybe technologies. We will have maybe a chat later on this one day, but you know, never forget two things. Venice is still standing today, you know, in Italy. And the other thing is, the other point is, I was in Dubai 30 years ago, and I just realized that Dubai is a town that was popped up from the sand. There was nobody, no one, only shepherds and ships and pearl diggers about 50 years ago. A city, an Emirates, worldwide known, with tourists pop up from the sand. And someone said, Martin Nicholson, I had a dream. We'll talk about it later. Why don't a country couldn't pop up from the water?
Beautiful. So never give up. So long-term plan versus short-term plan.
But short-term plan is to bring tourists more and more, because the thing is, even sustainability, the key word and the key point is money. So increasing the numbers of tourists in a very safe way and secure and respectful of the environment is, there are some ways to bringing tourists there. We have all of us in the world have suffered from the COVID collateral side effect. But I was just giving a number, you know, 10% of Chinese have a visa, which make 130 million today. You know, maybe in I would say 5 years, there will be 200 or 250 million just coming from China. And I link this because I've made a lot of strategy for even destinations. And thing is, the best ally of tourism and real estate is called demographics. So the short term is to make more tourists, because every sustainable programs and everything in the world needs money, unfortunately.
Thank you. Well, I would like to turn my attention now and direct a question to a serial entrepreneur who has more than 2 decades of expertise in technology, finance, education, and entrepreneurship, Mr. Arijit Bhattacharya. Arijit, thank you for being here with us today. How do we upgrade the whole innovation chain to include the latest generation of tech and sustainability? We need to have this conversation because tech nowadays is in everyone's mouth. And if you think, looking back 10 years ago, it was more of an idea, a future idea. Now we're all sitting here on our computers from all over the world. So we obviously need to integrate tech, but how do we do that with sustainability?
Super, thank you, Shasha, for the lovely introduction. Okay, so before I jump into technology, let me go back to probably a couple of thousand years back. Long back from Sanskrit, the name of the main, probably the full name, the way it came is group of deeps, which is the beautiful people on earth who are probably can enchant the pranayams. So from those Sanskrit, from those deep culture started. So if we go back to our own sustainability factor and then try to combine the whole holistic approach of new generation technology, first thing I would love to touch upon on travel and tourism. Now we're traveling physically. So there are solutions which people are using at the moment, which connects virtual reality and augmented reality. Using those technologies, you can actually travel using a HoloLens. You don't need to physically move from your location to another location. You can use an automated drone to actually physically be there in that space, enjoy everything except for the fact, the smell and the touch. So if we feel we want to integrate the same with travel and tourism, with technological advance, talking about education, talking about upliftment of communities, there are solutions, there are exact integrated solutions which I'm working on, where a teacher can teach with one single time with multiple number of students. It doesn't need nowadays to go to the school. Rather, school will come to your place. It doesn't need to move to your probably backpack and go to a university. Rather, it's an open university system that's going on. During pandemic, let me tell you, a multiple number of study, they have been doing the same using online technology. And of course, the graduation process ended in approximate 2.5 years with a mixed mode, physical and digital, both ways. So probably if we integrate these sectors with our technology, which is always an enabler, will be beautiful. And to be very honest to all of you, I have never traveled to Maldives, even though I traveled probably more than 50 countries. But yes, would love to see the neighbor country and would love to feel the air, just like you. Just to the fact that I can always do that using VR and AR. But yes, would love to do that.
Could you please tell us a bit more, maybe because I am slightly technologically challenged, to understand how you can actually implement certain technologies into this? Like, walk me through the process.
A very basic, yeah, sure. It took us a very basic glass, which we call as AR glass, or rather I would say a extended reality glass, which connects your acupressure points with a mainframe server. So when you move, when you react, when you see, you can actually simulate all those videographic projection from the drone, which probably is there in the island. And as a human, we always try to listen to our brain, our neurons. So what happens? These glasses will send a signal to our neuron actually into that location. And I can walk on the beach. I can easily see the sunset. I can enjoy the breeze that's going on. The only challenge at the moment we have on technology, we can accept smell, everything can be possible if we integrate the same with latest technologies like XR.
Interesting. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arijit. Thank you, Sasha. Let us now proceed to hear from local voices. We're very pleased to have here in our event today technical experts, youth activists, and some wonderful grassroots initiatives which are working hard to provide bottom-up solutions at the local level here in the Maldives, and we're really looking forward to hear about. Let's start with Mrs. Raniya Sobir, Raniya, you've authored and co-authored several studies and impact assessments on SDG implementation. So we very much look forward to hear about your work. Raniya, floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me, and I'm very, very pleased to be here. Although we are talking over Zoom, it's a great pleasure to meet you and to hear the discussions. As you mentioned, I was involved in the very initial discussions that we had in the Maldives on the Sustainable Development Agenda when the UN adopted it in 2015. And about 60 officials, and we all gathered together and we asked ourselves, what do we want to achieve from this global agenda? What is it? What is in us? And how do we benefit from this agenda? And I think 6 years into since the adoption of the agenda, I think it's very clear what it is that we want from this global agenda. And I think Minister Shauna also mentioned it is a resilient future. And I think, the lessons from the pandemic and the Sustainable Development Goals agenda could be our guide. And I just want to, in my statement, just kind of want to unpack those, what we mean by resilience and what, in the context of Maldives, what should be the priorities. The first point is on economic resilience. As you know, we have an economy which is highly dependent on tourism. Tourism directly contributes to about 26% of GDP, but indirectly about 80% world travel market. Our incomes are, affected. So we've in every crisis, and we saw that last year. So in every crisis, we talk about diversifying our economic base. The second point is clearly among youth, and a large proportion of the working age group actually is outside of the labor force, which means they're even not looking for work because residing on a resort is not a very attractive form of employment. So in terms of diversifying the economy and building economic resilience, I think because we've had such a successful tourism industry, which has flourished over 5 decades. And, by our standards, it is a mega industry. So every time we think about alternative sectors, I think we feel very intimidated, how do industries? And I think the speakers have covered, the areas that we should be looking at. President Ameenah mentioned the blue economy, and that is where we should be, focusing on blue value chains, creating jobs, creating entrepreneurs. Mr. Medici also mentioned, Mr. Marco also mentioned all these technology that can, unlock jobs and, incomes for people, waste to energy, another great area. We're talking about reducing emissions becoming 30. So what are the jobs and entrepreneurs that we can create in these renewable energy value chains? So this is one area. The second is spatial resilience. Over the past decades, the economic growth and development progress has been, it's different for those living outside of Mali in the atolls. And as a result, we've seen a lot of migration towards Mali, those who are seeking for better jobs, better education, better healthcare. Of the population living in this small, island capital. And even with the pandemic, we saw it's so hard to contain the virus in the greater Mali region because we have got very congested living conditions. And we also saw that when Mali goes into lockdown, it affects the essential supplies get cut off. So we need a spatial solution. If the current trends continue, the latest census shows that by 2030, actually, we will have more people living in this island capital than in the rest of the country. And already, the island's carrying capacity is exceeded. So we need a very strong solution. And we have space across the archipelago. We just need to draw investments and develop services in alternative hubs, which will be attractive for people to move to. And I really like the idea that, Mr. Bhattacharya mentioned about the technology and bringing schools to the children. And I think, that's probably the future if we talk about spatial resilience. How do we bring schools? How do we bring healthcare and other essential services to the people who wants to live in a, beautiful beach? And then the final point is on social resilience. In the face of growth, development, and during crisis. We have a very unique form of, social setup. We don't have absolute poverty. You won't see homeless people or beggars on the street, but we have a more hidden form of poverty. So one of the most unique indicators of the SDG goal 1 is on multidimensional poverty, which looks beyond incomes to look at, access to services, access to assets, and last year, we published the first ever multidimensional poverty data in the Maldives, and it showed that a third of the households are multidimensionally poor. So we need to build the safety nets. We need to build our social protections to adapt to the, and of course, we've talked about the climate crisis and how it's going to impact our communities. So we need to adapt our social protection systems to cater for those who are at risk. So I think those are the key points that I wanted to mention. I'm sure my colleagues have very much.
Thank you, Raniya. And let me bring now Aisha Niyaz, who is also a sustainability consultant. You have over 15 years of expertise working on implementation of SDGs, both in Maldives and across Asia, also with a wide range of stakeholders. So we look forward to your thoughts as well. Aisha, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Assalamu alaikum. About 3 decades ago, in 1989, the year I turned 7, the Maldives voiced the need for unified action to address the human-induced climate change and global warming at the United Nations General Assembly. In 1992, at the famous Rio Earth Summit, addressing human-induced global warming and the associated climate change was on the agenda, and sustainable development was defined as development that meets of the present generation without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Following the Earth Summit, key conventions such as the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, the UNFCCC, came into force, with the precautionary principle as one of the fundamental principles. However, even after about 30 years, we are still witnessing greenhouse gas emissions on the rise. The worst case scenarios anticipated back then has become the present day reality. Climate change has now become the climate crisis. Today, it is fact that sea levels will continue to rise even if we stop the emissions immediately. It is fact that 50% of the coral reefs of the world's coral reefs have already been lost. In 2018, the Intergovernmental Panel report on global warming of 1.5 with high confidence stated that if global warming continues, if the average temperatures reach even 1.5 degrees Celsius, there's a 70 to 90% loss of coral reefs. It further stated with very high confidence that with the 2 degrees Celsius of warming, we will be experiencing large losses of coral reefs of greater than 99%. Earlier this year, the World Meteorological Organization released a statement warning that the global average temperatures had recorded 1.2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. It further stated that there is a possibility of global average temperatures temporarily exceeding 1.5 degrees Celsius as early as 2024. These findings are extremely alarming for the Maldives, as it places Maldives is low-lying, coral reef ecosystem-based island nation of 99% ocean. Our lives and livelihoods are intrinsically linked to the health of our coral reefs and the health of the ocean. In 2009, I was one of the few amongst the so-called Global South that received a scholarship through Youngos, the official youth constituency of the UNFCCC, to attend COP15 at Copenhagen. That was the year former President, current Speaker of the Parliament, His Excellency Mohammad Nasheed, held his underwater cabinet meeting. Ironically, the Maldives was missing on the massive physical globe at the heart of the conference hall of COP15. The minute I saw it, I broke down into tears. I was absolutely shattered seeing that Maldives was already non-existent on the global map. I had hopes and dreams of having my own children, enjoying the island life and swimming with them in our turquoise blue waters, exploring our magnificent coral reefs. However, today, knowing that we are at the brink of losing our coral reefs, an unstoppable rise, terrified to bring a child to this world. So to answer the question, are we on track on achieving the SDGs? My answer is no. Yet I strive to hold on to hope and focus on doing what I can, striving for sustaining hope. The fundamental principle of the Sustainable Development Goal of leaving no one behind gives me hope, as it is crucial, especially for a country like ours, where meaningful public engagement in the decision-making processes seems to be an unfamiliar concept. The incredible, brave, and genuine change makers across the world gives me hope. Seeing female change makers at this roundtable discussion gives me hope. The opportunity to contribute at this roundtable discussion gives me hope. My heartfelt gratitude to diplomatic world for the invitation. It is time to work in solidarity, ensuring that no one is left behind. We have no time to lose. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aisha. Thank you for this very inspirational talk and for really sounding the alarm bell on the challenges facing the Maldives, which I hope will be amplified at the highest level in the international community. But it's also wonderful to see that there's so much action being taken at the grassroots level in the Maldives, bottom-up initiatives really, and we have here representatives in this event working on environmental conservation issues. So let me give the floor to Ms. Afa Hussain, who's an environmental advocate and founder of Believe Maldives. We really are eager to learn about the work you do.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. Everyone is feeling safe and doing well amidst of this global pandemic. I feel very privileged and honored to be here to share and express my opinions and views regarding the status of the Sustainable Development Goals. As to proceed, we are having this discussion today to know the status of the goals and to further realize how much work we have left to achieve these goals, considering that we have 9 years left to achieve all the targets listed down the 17. Sure, we have heard that we achieved MDG plus during the last Millennium Goals. So I'm sure that we all are very we all really want to achieve towards as Aisha mentioned, and without leaving anyone behind while achieving all of this. Looking at the updates of the current SDG goals, I looked down a published document published by the National Bureau of. I was a bit worried and saddened because a lot of data was unavailable for the targets written down. Of course, there was some data available on some goals, but since I have an environmental, the goals that are most relevant to the environmental conservation and sustainability. And since it actually made me realize that we need to strengthen the networks within the government authorities, agencies, and of course the civil society organizations to make all of these data available to see how, to actually know how far we have come, because considering the report, I don't see it visually or anything as such. And everything that revolves every issues, every social or environmental issues, we are also hearing a lot of good newses, president have pledged to protect one reef, one lagoon, one wetland from each atoll. But it is good that we are working towards that kind of actions. But that being said, we need to approach to manage these ecosystems. We need the involvement of the youth, the vulnerable communities, the women, every single person, not only the government authorities. Also, the fact that we heard that we contribute a very less amount of greenhouse gas emissions, but again, that being said, we have a lot of work to do in terms of local context. We see a lot of destructions happening. We see a lot of lagoons being with urgent immediate actions. We are in a climate crisis. So we, as Aisha mentioned, we don't have any time to lose. As I work closely with the youth communities as well as my local island that I was, which I focused, we saw in the recent years that the voices were unheard, the voices were neglected, the voices were sidelined when it came to conducting developmental projects. We see not far-fetched plans, we see short-term plans being done. We need a big vision for the country. We need to bring strategically environmental impact assessment to the Maldives. We need, so as to conclude, I would like to mention that I also feel that we are very far behind to achieve the SDG goals, but we are hopeful as always, because if there's no hope, I hope this engagement, all of these conversations will lead to a proper work, proper engagement of all of us are included in the decision level, and yeah, that's it. I would like to say thank you very much. It's been a very honor to be here and to hear all of your talks. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Afa. Thank you. And thank you for reminding us that really the achievement of the Sustainable Development Agenda is really a cross-sectorial collaboration. We need the really strong input from civil society, from youth, from women. So thank you for the work you do in this regard. Now I would like to pass the floor to Ms. Mariyam Rayya, who is the founder of Keep the Scene Clean and also a climate champion of UNICEF South Asia. Ms. Mariyam, if you're with us, the virtual floor is for you.
Good afternoon to all. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. First of all, I work at a full-time job as a marketing officer, and I'm also a volunteer at Maldives Girl Guide Association. Every year, MGGA celebrates the International Day of the Girl Child at the national. EVAX aims to help every girl realize her potential to make a difference in her community and the wider world. In 2019, this activity was focused on the Sustainable Development Goals, and with the strength of 10 million things happen. Together, we can help achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. MGG, in collaboration with United Nations for Population Fund and Ministry of Environment and Energy, we carried out 3 different activities to celebrate this day. It was a one-day workshop for country, which was held to sensitize them about the SDGs, SRH, and choosing a profession. I would say billboards and advertisements, videos about SDGs, but never really got into it as it felt like I had no word in it. And it was something about that the only people who could be taking action on. Until this time, that it was the first time I got a keen interest to learn more about the Sustainable Development Goals and about what we can do to achieve these goals individually as well. Having different conversations with the younger generation got myself highly involved, made me realize that a lot of people need to be more aware about this, their voices too, to make a difference. I participated in the Helenstra seminar by World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts in 2019. It brought together a group of young women from all over the world in the Swiss Alps to develop our leadership skills, have adventures, and create an environmentally sustainable. This seminar explored the environmental issues of today focuses on ways to raise awareness and use practical skills to create a sustainable change. We left with a change plan ready to impact our environment at a local level. This is when I started working on my project called Keep the Scene Clean. The idea was brought after I discussed the issues in my community with the founders of Save the Beach and Zero Waste MV, who aim to conserve and maintain the beaches and reefs, and aim to promote a zero waste, low impact lifestyle and to change people's perception of trash as a waste to be discarded in Maldives. They also helped me realize that a lot of awareness is needed in our community. This is why I make the best use of social media, creating awareness about the Sustainable Development Goals, highly focusing on those related to the environment, about what we can do to achieve these goals, and about the zero waste lifestyle. I have so far facilitated face-to-face awareness sessions for our members, which I have recently shifted to virtual sessions due to the pandemic. To spread awareness and to encourage tangible actions to protect children and young people in South Asia against the impacts of climate change, UNICEF launched a regional campaign, One Planet, One Youth, One Love. Together with me, 7 other young climate change champions from across the region, we will be empowering young people to raise their voices for the sustainable of their future, of our future as well. We advocate on the need of for children and young people to be involved as partners in any decisions that are being made at the policy level. Strategy designing phase and disaster mitigation plans involving climate change. I've also recently gotten the opportunity to speak at the General Equality Forum about feminist climate action by one and all from UN Women South Asia. Whether we are on track of the Sustainable Development Goals, honestly saying I am unsure. We're definitely seeing a progress in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals with an increase of sustainable products available within us. We still feel that more people needs to be aware on this to take an action. We still have a lot of work to achieve these goals, and I believe that if we work together, we can definitely make a change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Raya. Of course, the question of whether we are on track or not is difficult to answer, but if I listen to the stories we've been hearing today, I'm quite optimistic that we will make a good progress in that direction. Let me turn to Fathimath Ibrahim. We're gonna hear a very inspirational story. You've done great work with people with disabilities over the years. So Fathimath, the floor is yours.
Hi, I am Fathimath Ibrahim, and my name is Rabah, and I'm going to be Fathimath's English translator. Hi everyone, I am Fathimath Ibrahim. I'm visually impaired and have been working in the disability sector for the past 14 years. Visually impaired Maldivian to complete secondary schooling and O-level exams. At the time, schooling for visually impaired individuals was only available up to middle school. However, my family and I challenged the existing system, and I continue to attend school and complete my secondary education. At the current moment, I work at Maldives Tourism Development Corporation as a customer relation officer. I've accomplished various national records, such as becoming Maldives' first visually impaired 10K and half marathon record holder. I'm the first female Paralympics athlete representing the Maldives. And since 2019, I've been training for the Tokyo 2021 Paralympic Games. Last year, I completed a PADI open water diving course and became the first blind open water diver in the Maldives. It was such an exhilarating person does not stop you from achieving greatness in life. I hope you all loved my introduction. And with respect to inclusive education, I want to make some points. Even though educational methods for children with disabilities are improving, I strongly believe that teachers are still not aware of how to teach children who are visually impaired. The reason why I believe this is because schools do not have classes where children who are visually impaired can learn Braille. Only 8 people of Maldives know Devising, Arabic, English, and Maths Braille. And out of those people, 4 are visually impaired, 2 are parents, and 2 are teachers. The Ministry of Education's Inclusive Education Technical Committee, which I'm part of, is currently working on a software application for the visually impaired to learn English and Devising. All of the problems are being solved slowly. However, I still believe that more can be done, as we need equipment and materials such as Braille, typewriter, printer, keyboard for the visually impaired. And these materials can be helpful for educational purposes. a large proportion of children with disabilities are not attending school. And in my view, the main problem with the disability sector of the Maldives is that there's no correct database about the number of people with disability. And that is why we do not know how to cater for them. We do not know for sure how many children are out of school. And if we know the numbers, we can find ways to enroll them in school and not be deprived of the most important right for a child, the right to education. And if there's more time, I am happy to share my own experience of completing school. And thank you all for listening.
So inspiring. Thank you. I think we're all having a big smile on our faces.
Yes, yes, indeed. Thank you so much. I mean, all the challenges you've overcome, I think it's an inspiration to us all. And the true meaning of leaving no one behind, it also includes, of course, people with disabilities. And we sometimes forget this. So thank you for passing this message to us today. Let me turn to Mr. Zayan Ismail. He's a member of UTEMA, working on women's rights issues. Zayan, can you hear us well?
Yes, I am.
Perfect. The floor is yours. Go ahead.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Everyone, I was hoping that I would be able to meet you all in person, but alas, we have to compromise and adopt to Zoom, which I have been doing for the past, I think, a year and a half now, since I attended university. So I'll be talking about the women's issues in the Maldives, as I am a member of UTEMA, which is a civil society organization established in 2016, promoting and advocating for gender equality and women's empowerment in the Maldives. And we seek to understand the lived experiences of women in the Maldives and use that knowledge to advocate for positive change. In terms of gender equality, a lot of ministers have also spoken about this. We have made key strides within law and governance to improve women's participation in top-level positions within the civil service as well as politics. And when we look back at Maldives' track record on Millennium Development Goals, we indeed did get a MDG plus country status within South Asia, because we were achieving 5 out of the 8 Millennium Development Goals. But unfortunately, we did not achieve the goal on gender, which was not attained due to the lack of progress in meeting targets on female political participation as well as employment. But I'm very happy to see that there are many women that are participating within politics now, especially with regards to the new laws that have been enacted on the local councils. So the Sustainable Development Goal in that regard is a bit more ambitious, and we're working really hard to achieve that. We see that more women and girls in Maldives attain higher education, but this does not translate into equal labor force participation as well as equal pay, because a lot of girls as well as young women who go into the workforce, they do not achieve the best income that they deserve. For instance, data shows that per capita income for men in the Maldives is $15,576, while the per capita income for women is $7,454. So that's a huge gap that we see. And in terms of gender-based violence, which remains to be a key issue that needs to be addressed, and I'm glad that all the ministers have talked about the importance of participating women, but I think that this area remains to be an issue of grave concern, which needs a bit more addressing. And I regret to not see the Minister of Gender within these discussions, and I hope to see more talks about gender issues in the future. So when we're talking about gender-based violence, there is a legislative gap in the Maldives. There are some inadequacies in the law, which means that victims often girls who are young girls who are often re-victimized and marginalized. They're also blamed and also shamed for speaking out in commonplace. And of course, we know that the pandemic has further increased the risk of violence for survivors. And most of these women are from aged 19 to 40 years, that are mostly 4 times more likely than other age groups to report as a survivor of domestic violence. So women remain socially disenfranchised due to commonly held beliefs as well as norms. This dictates policy as well as heavy influences on the discourse around gender equity, oftentimes leading to a restrictive outlook where when we speak about these issues, we see that it's immediately shut down sometimes. And rather than the active participation of women in fighting for their rights, and of course, men being allies, men who are deemed to be a bit more socially powerful within the society are unable to join as supportive allies. So instead, they turn to dictate what women should and should not do. We also see that most of women's voices aren't effectively heard because of this. So we must move towards more bottom-up approaches, community-based approaches, top-down approaches of providing positions of power for women from the elite or privileged, as well as providing more opportunities for women who are in commonplace society, because giving positions of power rarely help the majority within the population, because we see that women sort of go into powerful positions and then they sort of forget about women who are mostly doing their regular jobs within agriculture, within tourism, for instance, as well as education, and our mothers, our sisters who choose to sometimes stay home because they do not find a suitable work environment and they do not get good enough pay. So at UTHEMA, we have been documenting the lived realities of women for a very considerable amount of time, and we advocate against gender-based violence. We have done quite a bit of work on those issues as well, but we have been targeted by sort of the political right, if you will, due to the advocacy work that we do on the women's rights issues, since it's a very sensitive issue. For instance, in response to a shadow report compiled by UTHEMA for the UN Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW, some of the members were receiving threats due to some of the allegations within the report that were in fact factual information based on research. So we see that the problem with the practice of sustainability is that women are often excluded from decision-making platforms. And we need to focus on the common women who don't necessarily aspire to be a politician. They just want equity and justice in their everyday lives. And I'm happy to see that so many young people are also joining this conversation. It's important for me, myself as a young person, to see more young people joining the talk of sustainability, because we sort of will bear the brunt of future progress. And the young population of Maldives are highly educated. They're highly vocal about these issues as well. So I'm really happy to see so much talk about this. And in answering the question, are we on track for sustainable development? I would have to say, yes, we are, because I am an optimist. But at the same time, I think there are forces at play that want to derail us from the original focus of sustainability. So we need to focus, I think, a bit more and include everyone within the society for sustainable development. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Zayan. I think a lot of what you said resonates with a lot of the participants of this event. Of course, this event is just a start to bring as many stakeholders as possible together. We will be doing more based on the topics that we discussed today. So certainly the conversation will not end today. Let me now pass the floor to Shafeea Riza. She's the co-chairperson of the Family Legal Clinic, which provides free legal services to women, to men, and to children facing family and domestic violence-related issues across the Maldives. Shafeea Riza, you have the floor.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to say thanks to Diplomatic World for giving the Family Legal Clinic this opportunity. I think we're having a great conversation, and what we're talking about is something that is of essence to the times that we are, especially given the times that we are facing. Family Legal Clinic, as Albert mentioned, is an NGO that provides free legal services in the areas of family, domestic violence, and sexual harassment. We work with both men and women, and also with children all across the Maldives. In addition to legal services, we also provide advocacy. We do advocacy efforts and awareness and outreach programs, and also research. Professionally, I am a practicing lawyer in corporate financial services, but I've also been running this NGO for now 7 years, and I think the dominant part of me is the social activist. Zayan has quite well explained the issues that women face in the Maldives, and I would like to zoom into one of the goals of SDGs, especially because we're talking about are we on track. In that regard, I'd like to focus on the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women, especially in terms of their economic empowerment. During COVID last year, we got grant aid from the UNRCO office in Maldives, and we did a nationwide study to understand gender impact of COVID-19 on women working in the informal sector. Since starting this organization in 2014, what I have noticed is that we have not made remarkable strides in the area of increasing women's emancipation in terms of their economic empowerment, financial capacities, and the ability for women to do businesses, hold property, and also, for example, be a part of certain important sectors such as tourism. I'm very happy that Minister Mausoom today mentioned that he is committed towards increasing women's participation in tourism sector. Currently, as per the statistics of National Bureau of Statistics, Maldivian women who work in resorts are, I think, amount to only 3%, while when the total number of women who work in the tourism industry amounts to 10%. I just wanted to give you a little bit of brief about the study we did. It's unpublished yet, but the findings that we made showed a lot of vulnerability of women, especially in informal sector, because there are no laws protecting them. A lot of the COVID relief packages and stimulus that were designed by the government focused on formal employment, formal registered businesses, which left behind many women who work in the informal sector. Some of these women make part of the supply chain to tourist resorts as well, did informal sector job that is related to the tourism industry, and therefore felt the shocks when the resorts shut down because the airports were shut down. So this brings to the point that in a system where attention is already not placed right for women generally in terms of emancipating them economically or financially. When COVID hit us, when COVID struck us, I think the most vulnerable of them were these women who were doing informal jobs. And that had a debilitating effect on their lives, on the people that they were looking after, on children, especially at a time when women were staying at home, when children were staying at home, when they were the caretakers and the caregivers for the older people in the household and also for the children. So as you know, women do a lot of unpaid care work in the Maldives, such as in most part of the world. But this situation only exacerbated their difficulties and pushed a lot of them towards the line of poverty. So what I would like to see as we move forward with development, because development is important, equitable development improves the lives of everyone, and we need development, we need diversification of economy, and we need different models to approach the tourism as well, to make tourism more accessible to local people, local families. But whilst we do it, we need to make sure that we do something differently this time, and that is to bring women on board, to make women key partners in policy making, to make sure that at the local level, women are being represented, women are being heard, that women are given the protection and the safety nets they do need, such just like men, because men mostly form the formal sector, and therefore in numbers more men are protected, whereas in the other scenario, women are disproportionately affected. So I think that's something we need to bear in mind. That's something that has not changed still. And we do keep track of research that is being carried out. And we have not seen much update in terms of goal 5.1A of SDGs, which talks about empowering women in terms of economic empowerment and financial capacities. And I think that's something we all need to do together, CSOs, government and private sector together. And I think that's the way to pave a way for future. Thank you.
Thank you, Shafeea, for this very clear and concise presentation. And I know discussion would be complete without bringing the academic perspective in. We have Dr. Fathimath Shadiya, Head of Department of Environment and Natural Science at Maldives National University. Dr. Shadiya, you have the floor.
Assalamu alaikum and a very good afternoon. First of all, I would like to say a very warm welcome to all of you for inviting me to this roundtable discussion. And to open this discussion, I would like to remind you all about the famous quote: sustainability is no longer about doing less harm, but it's doing more good. And it's a statement I always try to remember, because we are living in an era or a time frame where there is potential for us to do good. And at the heart of sustainability is leaving a better world for our children. And this can only be achieved with better education and awareness regarding sustainability issues in our schools and our universities. I represent the higher education sector, and I can say that Maldives' representation of sustainability in the higher education sector is very important. The higher education sector is a rich sector with many young, talented youth ready to contribute and serve our country. Therefore, this is the sector in which the concepts of sustainability should be taught so that graduates can apply sustainability to workplace and their own personal life. I would like to say that Maldives National University, in collaboration with Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Technology, has introduced first ever environmental management program in 2010 at bachelor level. Today, MNU also has introduced Bachelor of Marine Science so that majority of our youth can get the opportunity to study life below water. We at the university are very much concerned about the environmental degradation that occurs due to unsustainable development practices. As a result, we have dedicated ourselves to study pressing concerns related to solid waste management. And we have found that when we talk about waste management, there are many social issues that need research and innovation. Currently, we are very much focused on the issue of microplastic. And we are doing a lot of research, especially our students at special level. They are doing research on microplastic. And we have students analyzing gut contents of fish available in the market. These are readily available fishes, and we are very much worried about the content of the gut plastic content in these fish. So one of our main targets is to analyze the content and categorize and see the extent of this microplastic problem. We have students who carry out composting in the university, and our main objective is to find suitable dustbin designs that can be applicable to the urban areas such as Maldives City, because the space is very small in this region. And when we talk about sustainability and waste management, our biggest concern is how to recycle and how to reuse materials. And composting is done widely in island, but space is limited in the urban area. Therefore, we are trying to figure out what is the best way to do composting in a small urban flat, or let's say a small room. So this is one of the research we are currently undergoing. And we have students who study vegetation belt. We believe that a disaster, especially the flooding storm that Maldives is mitigation scheme, we do encourage soft measures as well as indigenous measurement to take place. And therefore, we believe that vegetation belt in island has a crucial role to play in disaster resilience. So we focus on the study of vegetation belt as well as coastal erosion with application of GIS technology. Currently, our lecturers and students are mapping the natural resources in the country using GIS, and we wanted to do an inventory of our natural resources. We also teach community development to our students to introduce participatory approaches so that our graduates can communicate and bridge the gap between the local and the public institutes. So we wanted to teach the students how to talk with the locals, how to bridge the gap between the institutes, how to break the barriers. So through this course, we actually equip the students for their after graduation to embark their life journeys. COVID-19 pandemic has taught us the importance of resilience and adaptability and has taught us the importance of investing in our social capital. Higher education has the biggest capacity to invest in social capital for a better future. And I think SDG goals such as no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, reduced inequality, peace, justice and strong institutions are important goals that can help the Maldives to build a strong foundation for social capital and a better future the Maldives in the coming years. So we believe that the higher education sector has a very important role to play in building our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shadiya. Indeed, education is such a key pillar in sustainable development, not just, as we mentioned before, not just as a goal itself, but also considering all the cross-cutting issues it touches: poverty, empowerment, reduced inequalities, etc. So thank you very much for the outreach work you do as well. Last but certainly not least, we have Shaziya Ali, Grant and Outreach Manager at Transparency Maldives. You've also been Senior Project Coordinator for the Climate Integrity Project, and you're working daily on improving transparency and accountability in all sectors through your research and advocacy. So we look forward to hearing about your work.
Okay, thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum and very good afternoon to everyone. Special thanks to the diplomatic world for giving Transparency Maldives the opportunity to be a part of this dialogue. Since, as you mentioned, Transparency Maldives is a CSO that is working on anti-corruption and good governance, I would like to share the story of us from a governance angle, but on the climate related goals that we do. So as we have been mentioning here, the Sustainable Development Goal defines the world that we want. It applies to all the nations, meaning that we all must work together, collaborate together to ensure that no one is left behind. Collaboration and working together are very important phrases for Transparency Maldives because it gives a sense of responsibility to everyone, and it puts the people at the center of the work that we do in order to make sure that no one is left behind in achieving the common goal that we all want to achieve. As a chapter, Transparency International, we all prioritize goals 16 and 17. These two are very crucial in achieving the other goals of the Sustainable Development goals. So today I'm very proud to share the story of Transparency Maldives, how we have contributed in improving the governance of climate finance sector of Maldives. Maldives undeniably is one of the most vulnerable country to the climate change. While we recognize the effort by the relevant authorities to address the climate change, I would also like to emphasize that we cannot wait. Our communities are already suffering. We are facing the challenges right now, so we need to preserve and act now. But in the process of working and acting on this climate work, we are seeing the authorities are sometimes forgetting to collaborate and work together. Many times we have seen centralized policies and limited participation of public. Also, beneficiaries are making the climate vulnerabilities even more vulnerable. So I would like to share some of the stories where we were able to contribute in the process. One such case was in 2017 when when Kurdufushi Kuli, one of the biggest mangrove and the carbon sink of Maldives, was destroyed to develop a domestic airport. Despite there being a fully functioning international airport just 15 minutes away from the island. The whole country raised the concern and tried to preserve it, the important natural resource for the present generation and also for the future. The case highlighted the issues in our governance system, which was the weak governance system actually facilitated the exclusion of the voices of over 4,000 women who were directly benefiting from this mangrove as a resource for their daily income. Even though our collaborated efforts and voices could not save the mangrove, Transparency Maldives was able to provide support in creating a space for individuals and CSOs to come together and voice out their concern. This led to successful collaboration in amplifying voices in similar cases for the communities. Since then, CSOs have been putting a united front to bring voices of communities to the table. One such case was the Save Fano campaign. Transparency Maldives supported the Save Fano community in order to raise their concern against the destruction of their farmlands and a large portion of their island vegetation in the name of a development project. We supported the Fano community in amplifying their voices by helping them with petitions, press statements, organizing protests, conducting awareness sessions. This coordinated effort was very fruitful, as Environment Protection Agency rejected the EIA and the government decided to cancel the project. The story does not end here. Today, as I speak here today, the concerned citizens of Addu City are seeking help in finding an innovative solution, a nature-based solution for the proposed development plan that would impact the biosphere reserve in the southernmost part of the country. On this note, while I would like to close the importance of the participation, I would like to reassure that Transparency Maldives will continue to support the government and civil society organizations to ensure that people's voices remain at the heart of the conversation, and also the transparency and accountability is the topmost priority of the government in the process of achieving the sustainable development goals. And before concluding, I would like to also highlight that to answer the question that we were asked today, if we are on the right track, I think to answer that question, it will be easier if we know the data available to review. Unfortunately, it is not there, as my colleagues and have already mentioned. So we would like to see those things get improved. Once again, thank you for the opportunity. As everyone mentioned, I also would have liked to be in person and doing this discussion together. But however, being able to join this discussion from my home island in the north is a sign of hope that we can do this and we can bring people together. We don't have to be in the same room to do this discussion. Public can be on the table of discussion. So thank you for the opportunity. We just need a little bit of more hard work and political will to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Shaziya, and for sharing this success story. And it's now 4 o'clock. We've covered the 2 hours of conversation, a very rich conversation. I would perhaps ask if Barbara has something to add before we conclude.
Yes, thank you so much to you all. I'm so happy that we are together and that we give the voice to young people too. We give the voice to the government, to the ministers, but to the young people. And what say Sasha and what say Alberto, this is the beginning. We want to work together, we will work together, and we work together. And we want to bring the change, and we will doing this. I'm so happy that this is a wonderful beginning to be together. Thank you so much from all my heart. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, and while we have not reached the consensus of whether we are on track or not for the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, I think listening to each and every one of you, we can be cautiously optimistic. We all want to leave a better world for the next generation. And this conversation is just the beginning. The proceedings of this conference will be published in the next edition of Diplomatic World magazine, as well as on the website. So we really wish to keep the momentum going and to organize more of such kind of events, hopefully in person soon when the conditions allow. But until then, we will be happy to continue discussing on a hybrid format, which is evidently better than nothing. So thank you to each and every one of you, to the ministers, to His Excellency Minister of Tourism for staying with us until the end, His Excellency Hassan Sobir, and to each and every one of you for your very inspirational stories. And I think we are very optimistic about the future of the Maldives after listening to you. So a big round of applause to all of you.